Well, this is the TWIS Minion Science Island Hangout. All the minions couldn't make it. Excuse me. Ooh, got old man voice. Justin just got home from selling cars, so he can't come here. Richard Drum's got a bad back. Hope you get better, Richard, soon. Pamela's been busy, as usual. She told me she'll be able to make it next week, but for tonight, you get the old guy. Got some stories. Try not to spend too much time reading them. I wanted to get involved mostly in discussions, which I'll try to do. Hopefully, will inform you, if not entertain you. All right. The first story, which I will screen share. Ooh. Don't want to see that old guy. I want to see the green turtle. And the good news is that green turtles along the coast of Florida and the Pacific coast of Mexico are making a comeback due to conservation efforts since they were first listed as endangered in 1978. Going to go through these stories. I'm not going to read them all. There will be links to all the stories in the Hangout. So any that you find interesting, you'll be able to read the whole thing. In this case, the green sea turtle was first listed as endangered in 1978, but because they're making a comeback of sorts, they're being reclassified. Now, under the Endangered Species Act, endangered species are those with a high risk of extinction in the wild. The turtle's new threatened classification indicates while populations are rebounding, they aren't out of the woods just yet, so conservation efforts will continue. Some of the things they did was, let's see, they prohibited the hunting of sea turtles for meat. That reduced the amount of, they also reduced the amounts of turtles that were being accidentally trapped in commercial nets. The main thing is they spurred efforts to protect nesting beaches and manage light pollution that confuses the nesting turtles. The reclassification shows how the Endangered Species Act inspired partnership between federal agencies, state agencies, and some foreign countries even. And the main takeaway is you're not just saving a species, you're saving an entire ecosystem. This reclassification points out that populations were more or less thriving. One really good thing is that it allows to tailor our conservation approaches. So yay for the green sea turtles. Now let me go over, had an interesting chat with Rox over in the chat area. Gonna be hard for me to keep up, so I'm just gonna let Rox know. Be right with another story. It will be hard. That's the thing. Old man, not good at multitasking, so it's hard for me to go over the stories by myself and still follow the chat. Hard to follow the chat as I am live. All right. Back to the Hangout. The next story I want to talk about And this speaks to using local resources wherever possible. Let me do the screen share again. This is Pakistan. And the problem in Pakistan for many of the remote villages is they don't have access to electricity. They're off the grid. But they were near, in this particular case, the Huza River. And that's in the Rakapusha mountain in Pakistan's Karakoram range. Hopefully I pronounced those properly. And women had to walk miles just to collect firewood each day. This hydropower, using the local river, has supplied the villagers' energy needs. Life has gotten much easier. They've got electric stoves, electric ovens, electric lights, using energy-saving bulbs. With the availability of electricity, we've been relieved of such burdensome work. The initiative holds great meaning to our lives. And this came about in 2008 when a macro hydropower station was built by the Aga Khan Rural Support Program with backing from the United States Department of Energy. It produces 190 kilowatts of electricity an hour, which is enough to power 144 homes in this small village in Obadabad, and another 110 in a couple of nearby villages. And they're proving a key to providing off-the-grid power for areas which don't have much. Somebody is communicating with me. Not sure who that is. Excuse me. Really hard to follow what is going on. Looking at my chat. No, don't. I have no clue who's trying to contact me, so apologies. In any event, back to, no, don't want that story. Want that. I'm really organized tonight, guys. The one-man band. Okay, back to our friends in Pakistan. Another thing is, by using hydropower in these from the local rivers, they don't have to cut down all the trees, so it's slowed down deforestation. No one chops trees down to harvest fuel wood, and the forests are making a comeback. Let's see, the villages had lived in darkness to one where children could not study. They didn't have any electricity at night. And now some school, and they no longer have to miss school because of the job of carrying and collecting firewood. They have enough time at home to study, finish their schoolwork, even after sunset. This is really a win-win. There are plans to expand the project to provide electricity to an additional 1,400 households in nearby villages. And they live in the mountains. There's a lot of small villages. And because they're in the mountains, they're very fast flowing rivers. So they're really perfect for hydropower. Let's see. Get under the guy, Jamal Undin manages development projects in another area, the Gilgit Baltistan area. So his organization, in collaboration with Pakistan's Alternate Energy Development Board and the Pakistani Poverty Alleviation Fund, they're going to plan to install 100 more small-scale hydropower plants in the upper basin. Using resources, using local resources. And I think Come on, get out of the screen share. Here we go. That also, I think, holds lessons everywhere. And that ultimately, I think we all want to get off the grid. We still got to create better solar panels. And right now, the solar panels that we're using, I think they're maybe 20% efficient at converting sunlight into energy. And the batteries we have can only store maybe a day or so's worth of energy and release it perhaps more slowly. So it takes longer to charge your electric car, let's say. But that's a technical problem. And at some point in the future, maybe not too far into the future, the solar panel technology will reach the point where we can convert maybe like 80% sunlight into energy. And that means the batteries will be able to store 3, 4, 5 days maybe worth of energy. Even the appliances that we have will probably be more energy efficient. And, like I say, it might take a decade or two, but at some point, I think almost all of us will be living off the grid. Our grid is going to be the connection from our solar panels to our homes. And I know it's probably best to maintain a backup. The best backup I can think of would be nuclear power plants, I think. But even there, you still have a grid. You've still got to get that electricity, the power, to each of the local communities. And if everybody's got their own little power grid in their own little yard, then we don't worry about that. You don't worry about the fact that if the grid goes down in one place, an entire city's without power. So it is encouraging the pace of solar improvements in solar technology. I have read that I think they had a competition and someone has built a solar power panels that can convert, I think it's 30%, over 30% of the energy of the sunlight for energy. And Rox in the chat room is saying it's just in time for nuclear fission to come online. That's going to be useful to power our rockets in space. But even with a nuclear fission, way better. But you still got to have that grid. You still got to get your electricity, your power from the fusion plant to the homes and the cities, et cetera. It's got to be cheaper. Even the way we produce the panels themselves has to improve, but that's just a technical problem. And I 20 years, okay, I'm 72. That's going to be 92. With the improvements in DNA medication, I'm going to make it to 100. So I'm going to bet I'm going to be there. But I got to have my own little power grid and probably on my own deck. Okay, what do we got next? What I got next, and this is in Scientific America. And that's not the one I want. Come on, press the right buttons here. Jumping around a little bit because I want to make sure I get to the most interesting stories. The lineup, I changed the lineup since it's just me. Okay. Let me screen share so you don't have to look at my bald head while I'm reading. Let's see, what's Rock saying? Nuclear fusion promises to produce virtually unlimited power, though. But she agrees. Our energy future looks quite promising. All right. Now, this is something physicists, philosophers have talked about. Are we living in a computer simulation? Ooh. And they had a conference at the Isaac Asimov Memorial Debate at the American Museum of Natural History, where Neil deGrasse Tyson is the museum's Hayden Planetarium director. Now, this surprised me. He says he puts the odds at 50-50 that our entire existence is just a program on someone else's hard drive. He says, I think the likelihood may be very high. Interesting. He noted the gap between human chimpanzee intelligence, despite the fact that we share 98% of our DNA, and somewhere out there could be a being whose intelligence is just so much greater than ours. I don't know what he also says we would be drooling, blithering idiots in their presence. I don't know if that's really true. I'm already a blithering idiot, so. Okay, I'm going to read from the story. It's a popular argument for simulation hypothesis that was first put forward by an Oxford philosopher named Nick Bostrom in 2003. He suggested that the members of an advanced civilization with enormous computing power might decide to run simulations for their ancestors. They would probably have the ability to run many, many such simulations to the point where the vast majority of minds would actually be artificial ones. So simple statistics, those two words don't go together. It's as much more likely that we are among the simulated minds. Pretty fanciful science fiction there, but science fiction often does become science fact. Other reasons to think it might be virtual. The more we learn about the universe, the more it appears to be based on mathematical laws. Perhaps this is not a given, but a function of the nature of the universe we are living in. If I were a character in a computer game, I would also discover eventually that the rules seemed completely rigid and mathematical. That just reflects the computer mode in which it was written. And that's interesting. Furthermore, ideas from the information theory keep showing up in physics. In my research, and this is James Gates, theoretical physicist of the University of Maryland, he finds this very strange. I was driven to an error correcting codes that what makes browsers works. So were they in the equations I was studying about quarks and electrons and supersymmetry? This brought me to the stark realization that I could no longer say people like Max are crazy. But of course, there's room for disagreement. Let's see. Tyson himself points out, kind of, if you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. If you're finding IT solutions to your problem, maybe that's just the fad of the moment. And the statistical argument that most minds in the future will turn out to be artificial rather than biological is not a given. Lisa Randall, theoretical physicist at Harvard. It's just not based on well-defined probabilities. The argument says you'd have lots of things that want to simulate us. I actually have a problem with that. We mostly are interested in ourselves. I don't know why this higher species would want to simulate us. And I gotta kind of agree with her. If you're gonna pick a species to simulate, you might not want to pick humans. I actually am very interested in why so many people think that's a possibility. And again, this is all just interesting speculation. You got to be able to test it. I have no idea how you could come up with a test. Maybe somebody can find out. What occurs to me is we're reading a lot about virtual reality. and the new virtual reality devices that are coming out. Some good reviews, some bad reviews. Still got the clunky headsets, I think. Not sure if you're a gamer, the new ones probably work better. But when we talk about potential, when these devices become even all immersive, become much better at simulating the real environment, so that, for instance, if you're teaching a child, if you can get into that virtual reality world, you can kind of take them by the hand. You can point to the trees and the flowers. You can demonstrate how evolution actually works by going inside DNA. How cool would that be? You're inside DNA itself. So it could be really great educational tool. Yeah, I don't know. What would be the difference? Well, a difference would be would it engage all our senses? Would that VR world engage all of our sensors like the real world does? It certainly would for sight. Good for, I guess you could put smells in there. I don't know. Don't know if that's a good idea. And you could probably make it texture-like so that you feel like you're actually touching stuff. But I don't know, tasting might be hard. I guess, if you had an implant connected to all your sensory organs, you could do it. I don't know how many people are going to want that kind of an implant. I'm not going to go to the whole porn business, which would obviously, you can kind of see the old man and the old woman, and they each got their own little VR devices, and they're off kind of in their own little worlds. So. All right. Where I'm going to go next, also dealing with technology. And this is Google's Go Army. Now, of course, you've all read about the amazing computer algorithm AlphaGo, and how AlphaGo beat the pure human because it was so much smarter than the pure human. But that AlphaGo had a whole team of people. It had an army of people behind it. That algorithm was created by people. And reading from the story, the AlphaGo learning algorithms called deep neural nets, were trained using a database of millions of moves made in the past by human players. Then it refined this knowledge by playing one split-second game after another against itself. It became ever more apt at the game. By continuing this learning, which amounts to many human lifetimes of experience, with a technique called the Monte Carlo tree search, randomly named for the ability to randomly sample a universe of possible moves, the AlphaGo prevailed. Seemed to be a tremendous victory. 15 people who were part of it, part of the AlphaGo team, were in the room, but that was only a small part of all of the humans that went into creating that particular computer technology. Humans can learn to recognize patterns on a Go board, and patterns and related to faces and patterns in language, and even patterns of patterns. This is Melina Mitchell, a computer scientist at Portland State University. This is what we do every second of the day. But AlphaGo only recognizes patterns related to Go boards. It has no ability to generalize beyond that, even to games similar to Go, but with different rules. Also, it takes millions of training examples of AlphaGo to learn to recognize patterns, whereas it only seems to take humans a few. Computer scientists are experimenting with programs that can generalize far more efficiently, but the squishy neural nets in our heads, shaped by 500 million years of evolution and giving a training set as big as the world itself, can still hold their own against ultra high-speed computers designed by humans and programmed for a single purpose and given an enormous head start. And, this idea that the kind of AIs we're seeing now kind of prove that, the AIs are going to be doing all the jobs and everything else. I'm not buying it, because I think of an inherited inflexibility. They can do specific tasks. They can look and focus on areas they're programmed to focus on. If you have the next level quantum computers that can do medical research, but it's going to be a quantum computer algorithm designed for medical research. You're going to need another, AI computer algorithm to deal with something else. Whereas humans are far more flexible. We can move around from one subject to the next quickly. Heck, my 72-year-old brain could learn all about, I knew practically nothing about science. I was a bank auditor. So my brain can move from bank auditing to science with the help of our friends at This Week in Science, of course. So I think the human brain, it can deal with randomness. I think it has far more creative capabilities than any kind of AI that I can visualize into the future. So let's say as far as we can see into the future, next 10 years, maybe 15, 20 years, the computers are going to be doing all the boring jobs. If you work in a factory, job's going to go away. Any kind of repetitive labor type of job, those are going to be gone. But the most creative types of work, the designing, that's going to be what humans are going to do. Identity 4 and TWIS don't have to worry about music creation. I think, you think of all the millions and millions of neuron connections in our brain, constant stimulation, in and out, new information in, old information out. That's an amazing computer algorithm that we got in our own little brains. And I think that's way more creative. And I just don't see anyone building any kind of an AI intelligence that can even match us. In the next 10, 20 years, no idea what's going to happen, beyond that. But for now, they're really great, but they just can't match the old brain. Well, maybe they can match my brain, but they can't match the young kids' brains, the brains of the kids using the Twitters, and etc. Okay. And what is Rock saying? Will there be enough creative work to support the size of the workforce? That's a good question. I think my guess, if you're talking about 5 to 10 years, that's going to be a problem. That transition to where the computers are doing the repetitive manual labor jobs. Maybe in running, for instance, the computer simulations of the information gathered from from the astronomy devices. But it's still the human brain can do the analytical kind of work, can think of something completely new. But the next 5 to 10 years, Roxy's got a very good point. And that's something I think I am concerned about. And I think it really emphasizes the point. We got to education. If you don't have technical education, man, then you might well be out of luck. Seems like we would, this is Roxy in the chat room again, seems like we need a new economic system at that point. Maybe a much bigger welfare component, and that's also a good point. I think what we will see is, well, it's going to be the best vision I can have is it's going to be a future where there'll be a lot of pluses, a lot of minuses. You're going to have, we're going to be taking care of health problems at the DNL level, maybe even dealing with correcting some genetic problems with embryos. So think of all that money we now spend on healthcare. Gonna go away. That's just an example. So I think, and we're gonna have companies, the companies are very profitable, they're gonna be more profitable, and we're gonna tax them. Well, that's assuming the Democrats are in power. Republicans get in power, we're on our, then I don't know what's gonna happen. But like Finland and another country, they're giving people, every citizen gets $20,000. And I think what will happen is you'll have a kind of a welfare state. We're going to have to evolve. Our economic system will have to evolve, absolutely. And one aspect of it will be everybody will have at least be able to have a roof over their head and pay for enough money to put food on the table and access to an education. Basic needs. And what will happen is then when people do go looking for work, they're going to be looking for work that's more creative. They're not going to be taking jobs that are more repetitive and boring. Computer's going to be doing them. So I think it opens up a whole new future where people will be able to get to do jobs, hobbies, exercising their imagination, their creativity. I think it's going to be a much better for working people. But again, you need that technical education, and you do need a more socialistic kind of society. You look at history. What's human history? Society's evolved. How we function, how we work, it has evolved. And at every point, there's been the problem when technology takes over, jobs get replaced, and a whole new set of jobs are created. Problem this time is we may not have that longer period of time to learn the new skill sets. Don't know. But economic system evolves just like every other kind of a system evolves. And like maybe even money, and we've talked about this before, Justin has talked about it. Our concept of money going to disappear. I'm not sure what it's going to be like. Might even be an online kind of a payment system, not paper money. It might be kind of a thing where maybe you perform a particular task, people then look at that task, they think it's very useful. It might be exchanges of service. Certainly electronic, Bitcoinish. That's definitely what the future is. Cash money is going to be out of the way. We might go to even some kind of local currency where the guy who owns the store, we shop locally and we exchange work locally. I'm doing something that's useful for the local store owner. And when I go to that store, they give me what I want. And let us see, we have Roxy on my little iPad. And Roxy says, going to be a race between reducing cost of living through automation and the loss of economic demand from the loss of jobs. Seems to me it's going to be something that requires quick action from our government. Quick action? That's going to be a problem in response to the impact that automation will have on society. Already a problem today, yes it is, and I'd say our technology is way ahead of our ethics, legal system, those with great resources to use technology to accrue. And she's absolutely correct, because the people making decisions, politicians, mostly older people, and for the most part, they are clueless. They're the worst people in the world to be making decisions about what we need for the future, the kinds of government programs we need for the future. Getting into politics here, but when I look at Republican ideas, for instance, when you look at a lot of the people I know, they think past models are better. They want things to be like they were when they were younger. They have a more difficult time dealing with, the most recent kinds of technologies. But once you embrace it, and I've got a lot of people in my age bracket, several friends I've met on Facebook, and they're, if anything, more ahead of me when it comes to understanding and utilizing these new technologies. Just amazing stuff. But we need leaders who can bring us into that future that can change more quickly. My guess is, and this could be a real problem, what the changes are going to happen at the local level. And you might see those parts of the country that embrace technology, the West Coast, parts of the East Coast, Texas. Even Texas has got a lot of, a lot of universities near colleges. But there's many parts of the area, and we can see this. The Trump supporters, the Cruz supporters, they don't want to change. And so, and even if someone gets in, like a Hillary Clinton, she may have some good ideas, but our government works really, really slowly, too slowly for what we need. So I think it's going to be more incumbent on local communities, those local communities that embrace new technologies and figure out ways to get rewards for their work, working together. You might even see more science islands where people are local. They rely more on local resources once again. And man, that divide, that economic divide, I don't know how it can't get worse for at least the short-term future. That educational divide. Man, we got people like the governor of Kansas doesn't even want to support, doesn't even want any Kansas taxpayers' money going into the school system. So, I mean, you got a real divide. It's going to be up. I think those people that embrace technology, you're going to be okay. You're going to be able to find ways to have the skill set to get the kind of jobs that are created in the future. You're going to be okay. The people without the technical training, man, I don't know. The government has to know you can't rely on business for providing technical training. The businesses, they want the trained individual. You got a system, I think, more like in Germany, where an unemployed person, they get their unemployment insurance, but then you've got the businesses say, okay, here's the skill set we need. You got the unions involved. You got a real partnership, and that's what we need, a real partnership. Going to be a struggle to get there. And what does my friend Rox in the chat room says? Good theories, Ed. It wouldn't be the first time that the grassroots movements are the ones that establish the right models for our times. And, I kind of think really that's what it's going to be. If we can get people like Bernie Sanders, an old guy embracing technology, if we can get that kind of thinking into government, although it will happen more slowly, eventually, yes, the government will implement the kinds of programs we need. But man, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while to get there. You're on your own, people. Until then. Okay. What else have I got? And I apologize, losing my voice. Don't have other minions here. Don't have the Justin minion to help do the talking. Let's see. Oh man, we were talking about numbers, and this is a story that's been reported about a supermassive black holes and maybe lurking elsewhere in the universe. They talked about it on This Week in Science last night. And let me do the screen share once again, so you're not looking at the top of my bald head. Not going to drive you blind. And the reason why I'm talking about this today is perspective and the numbers we're talking about. And to read from the story, a near-record supermassive black hole discovered in a sparse area of the local universe indicates that these monster objects, ones equal to 17 billion suns, are more common than we once thought. They thought they were around 10 billion times that of our sun, but it looks like it's more likely to be around 15 to 20 billion. And let's see, this newly discovered black hole, it's a galaxy called NGC 1600 on the opposite part of the sky from something called the Coma cluster. This is the leader of the team, Ching-Pai Ma, UC Berkeley professor of astronomy. And he said that these rich groups of galaxies are very, very rare. But there are quite a few galaxies the size of this NGC 1600 that reside in average-sized galaxy groups. So maybe this one particular object is just the tip of the iceberg. Black hole was discovered in 2011 that had an estimated upper range of 21 billion solar masses. But now that range is down to 15 to 18 billion masses. Interestingly, the stars around the center of the galaxy are moving as if the black hole were a binary. And binary black holes are expected to be common in large galaxies. Such galaxies are thought to be growing by merging with one another, gobbling each other up. These black holes would likely sink to the core of the new and larger galaxies, and after an orbital dance, merge with emissions of gravitational waves. Let us see. Roxy is saying good night. Thank you for joining me, Roxy. Oh no, that was another one of the minions, I think. Okay, wait a second here. UXFI1. Good evening. Oh, we have a new minion. Don't mind me, guys. And UXFI is saying, what do you think about the future of space? I think our space is going to be around for quite a while, but I don't think that's the question you're asking. Come on. Okay. I think ultimately, of course, we're going to be living in space. And at some point, be it overcrowding or whatever, we're likely to run out of resources based on the kind of populations that we'll have. So we're going to have to go off Earth. I think that's inevitable. That's one thing we do. Traveling is in our DNA. So yes, we're definitely going to go off Earth. We'll be living in space. We're creating these space environments, maybe mini Earths. We're going to be living on other planets. We'll get terraforming down pretty good. So I'm pretty sure we'll have colonies on Mars. We'll have colonies anywhere we've got any kind of a dynamic environment, maybe Europa. And then, well, the problem with moving outside our solar system is the space involved. I think in that case, once we talk about moving outside our solar system, then you're talking about an arc. And you're talking about people going out with no intention of ever coming back and just going out in space in a space arc. They're going to have an environment. They're going to have the little spaceship, their arc ship. It's going to have all they need to sustain them until they find someplace else. Because, man, that's one of the things. Just the incredible vastness of space. I mean, things like, how do you comprehend an object that with the mass of 17 billion suns? I don't know. And we used to think, you look at human history, that, the Earth was the center of the universe and our sun was the center of the universe. And man, we're just some little teeny tiny, itty bitty, insignificant dot in the universe. We don't have to worry about hiding from aliens. They're never going to find us anyway, because we're such a, teeny tiny little dot. The odds of anybody coming across us are astronomical. So, that will be a future in space, and that will involve, evolving into whole new human types and human beings. It's going to be an amazing kind of existence. I'm not going to see it, that's for sure. I'm quite happy on Earth. I really don't have any interest in moving onto a Mars colony. All you other guys get out there and leave me Earth to live off of. So I don't know, but it's really hard for us to comprehend the vastness of space. There are probably apps out there that can show you, they can show you the universe, and then this little teeny itty bitty dot over here in the corner is Earth. And getting rid of that Earth-centric, human-centric idea, Now I'm going to go off into religion again. The idea that the universe was created for man by God or something like that. Now, I don't know. Maybe God did create a universe. I don't know. But, you know, the idea we're some kind of special, exceptional sort of species, and then we're way above all those other species on Earth. Ridiculous. You know, anybody who studies science knows that. But we have a significant number of people who, what's happening? What's happening? I'm looking at my, looking at the chat area. UXFI has requested I don't know, sorry, UXFI, I got no idea what you're talking about. Hopefully you can figure this out yourself. Sorry. But we're just part of the environment like every other species. The primary difference between us and other species is the technology that we can create. And that ability means we can alter our environment, for better or worse, to a greater extent than other species can. But, I mean, we're controlled. That's not necessarily the wrong word. We've got bacteria in our gut we can't live without. We might very well have viruses that have control to some degree our DNA replication, even at our earliest beginnings in the blastocysts. So, I mean, we're just part of the environment. And when people talk about nature and like humans are outside of nature, we are not outside of nature. I had another story talking about some people thinking of humans as being an invasive species. Okay, we're a new species in the environment. We can be considered invasive in that regard, but that's just natural. And we help create new ecosystems, but there are plenty of species that take advantage of how we've altered the environment. Adaptability, we gotta be adaptable to a new environment. And and when we look for an answer to the kinds of problems like climate change, etc., we've got to think in terms of an entire ecosystem. We had the story, every week we find a new species that was threatened coming back from extinction. And they do it because we look at the ecosystem holistically as an entire environment, not just let's save this one species. No, let's save an environment. And we save the environment because it's in our own best interest. And I think it's really important, really, really important that we don't consider ourselves to be some kind of special species, and that however we adapt, we don't try, for instance, climate change. We don't try to control climate change and make it the way we want it. What we do is we adapt to a changing environment as best we can, that we mitigate how we interact with the environment as best we can, so we can slow down this inevitable change. We can't stop it, but we can slow it down. And if we speed it up, then we're the ones that are not going to be able to adapt to this rapidly changing environment. Let's see, what does Roxy got to say? But to increase the amount of time we have to be able to exist off planet. Okay. We've wasted a lot of time. Let's see, let me read her entire comment. we've a limited amount of time beyond this planet. All right, yeah, the sun's gonna go out at some point. Hopefully, we'll start to use our time more wisely from here out. It seems like we've wasted a lot of time in the last few decades, treating the Earth like nothing more than an unending source of raw materials to satisfy our gluttonous nature. Okay, I can buy that. We need to make smarter decisions about the use of these raw materials and to have a plan to reduce our environmental impact, to reduce our impact, and to limit because we need to increase the amount of time we have to be able to exist off planet. That's a good perspective. I mean, it's certainly, I don't know how long it's going to take us to create these off planet, to terraform Mars and things like that. And if we speed up climate change, which we seem to be doing, then, as Roxy says, it's shrinking. It's shrinking the time we have, the opportunity we have to adopt and to terraform and do things like that. So I agree with Roxy absolutely on that question. Let's see. Gonna go on to another story. An interesting. Well, I got two stories here dealing with health, and I'm going to go with the one that is more important to us. And it's a study. Oops. The old man lost the article. Well, I'm going to go to screen share it, and then I will just read along with you. What it has to do with is a drug that was created. And it was created to improve our heart health. And the drug works exactly the way it's supposed to. Reduces levels of LDL cholesterol, the dangerous kind. More than doubles the levels of HDL, the good kind. And so, it looked like, well, it's going to help people. It's going to help people with heart problems. But the specialists were stunned by the results of a study of 12,000 patients. There was no benefit from taking the drug. No, nada. And the drug maker stopped the study, saying it was simply futile. Participants taking the drug saw their levels drop. The bad cholesterol levels dropped just like it was supposed to. Their good cholesterol levels dramatically increased just like it was supposed to. But when they looked at two groups, the placebo group and the group getting this medication, I mean, it's amazing. 256 heart attacks with the people getting the medication, 255 in the placebo group. That's amazing. 92 patients taking the drug had a stroke, 95 in the placebo group, 434 people, I shouldn't be laughing, taking the drug died from cardiovascular disease, and 444 in the placebo group. Wow. Absolutely no difference. We had an agent that seemed to do all the right things, and yet it worked, but it didn't do what it was supposed to. It didn't help the way I'm sure anybody looking at this would have said, this is a no-brainer. This is fantastic. We've licked the cholesterol problem. Well, you got to go back to the drawing board. Let's see. These drugs are being tested. They've got some new drugs they're trying out, being tested in larger clinical trials. And the new drug is going to cost $14,000 a year. Okay, that is a problem. These are very expensive. Let's see what they do. They included 500 people with extremely high levels of this high cholesterol, randomly assigned to take either a statin, can't pronounce that word, sorry, a Satan, or a placebo over 10 weeks. Those that were taking the statin, probably mispronouncing that word, were switched to a placebo for 10 additional weeks, and the placebo group was switched to the other group. Less than half the patients seemed to truly be unable to tolerate the Satans and complained of muscle pain, oh good grief, muscle pain only when they were taking the drug. Okay, so come on, screen share. Okay, so I mean, this shows how difficult it is when we're talking about developing medication. And why, one reason it's so expensive is because you got to put so much money into creating it. And the majority of the time, you do your mouse study. We read about it all the time. It works wonders in mice, but mice aren't humans. And so even when the mouse study, everything looks great, and then you go to the clinical study and it just doesn't work. The majority of the time, they don't work. I don't know what the percentages are, but it's probably only a small percentage of time that it works. Now, what is happening is where we're able to use computer simulations. The simulation of, for instance, things like mice. Instead of using real live mice, where you have a certain lifespan, where you've got to genetically control the mice so it's going to be able to fit into the study. If you can go to the really accurate computer studies, then you can test out, you can have a much better idea that a particular drug may work. You're improving the odds of picking the correct drug with the best chance of working. And so I think we're going to get better at being able to pick the right medication that will actually work. We're going to improve how we run our tests to see if they do work. And I'm going to go into the next study because it points to the fact that as we learn more and more about what is causing illness, we get down to DNA, we get down to the genetic level, that's where we're going to solve the problems. Okay, next article deals with autism. And I'm not sure that high-functioning autistic people represent a problem. The ability to focus that some high-functioning autistic people have, I can even infer an advantage. Okay. Now, this is interesting because it used eye tracking technology to monitor eye movement of children with autism spectrum disorder. And it was during an interactive conversation, shows the children with development disability fixated longer on a speaker's mouth rather than their eyes when the conversation turns emotional. Let's see. What we talk about really matters for children with ASD, says the lead author. We just change a few words by talking about what people do versus about what they feel, and we can have a profound impact on where the eyes go for information. They showed what children with a shift away from eyes towards the mouth by children with ASD, particularly those with a higher autism severity and poor verbal and intellectual ability. Although it is unclear why children with ASD look at mouths more frequently during emotional conversations, Hutchinson's theorized that talking about emotions strains executive function. And emotionally charged topics likely place high demand on working memory, which, when a threshold is suppressed, makes rendering information from the eye region particularly difficult. Let's see. Talking about a situation where the poor are going to get poorer, and there he means if we're not choosing the correct way to engage these children with ASD, then we could only make things, we may only make things worse instead of better. Come on. There we go. That's another example where we're learning how the brain works better. We're learning better how the brains work. And we're looking at down to, again, that genetic component, that little ribosome factory in our brains that's churning out new brain cells. We're looking at DNA. We're able to, I mean, it's amazing our ability to focus in on certain portions of DNA. And we're really, it's amazing what we can do with how little we know, because for the most part, we're still only looking at small sections of DNA. And we know, we can focus on someone with a particular condition. We can look at their DNA. We can then see, okay, here's a particular section of DNA we should focus on. And then now we can learn more about this, how this health problem is developing. So we are on a threshold of really making some tremendous changes, some tremendous advances in how we deal with healthcare problems. I'm very optimistic about that, even in the short term. I mean, it's like every month we're finding out, we're making tremendous advances every single month in our understanding of how DNA and cellular reproduction works. And we're still in kindergarten when it comes to knowing with any real degree of precision. But I mean, we're talking about the Star Trek future. Star Trek future. Now, well, I don't have my friend Justin with me, and the kind of stories that got left, we're getting into kind of the politics. So I will, I'll go over them anyway, and I'll give you my viewpoint on things. The first one, and let's see, this is an article in the, and we're talking about censorship. So I guess we're talking about sociology and politics. Okay. And now, this particular article talks about a study by the Parent TV Council. And in the article, they're talking about this being bipartisan. But really, I got to tell you, it's not. And this is, rats. I have to go to the Wikipedia. Okay. Hopefully, I'm screen sharing that. Now, in Wikipedia, we find out that the Parents Television Council, it's a United States-based censorship advocacy group, and it's a conservative Catholic advocate who started this particular agency. Now, let me get back to the article. So we know this particular study is biased. It's got an extreme bias. Now, the claim here is, let me get back to the picture. You can look at the nice kids. This council, their mission is to protect children and families from graphic sex, violence, and profanity in the media because of their proven long-term harmful effects. Yes, I'm an example of the long-term harmful effects. Well, let me get back. Roxy has posted something in the chat area about what I was talking about. And she says, that's for sure. Genetics will be a revolution which is going to be hard to predict, especially if we're not careful about treating its unethical implications. And that is accurate. Okay, getting back to the people at Parents TV Council. We're going to protect your kids from all this sex and violence. Chief among their findings, currently no G rated appropriate for all audience, regularly scheduled series airing during prime time. There are few programs on prime time broadcast television rated TGPG, and few differences between their content and the TVR 14 rated, only for the teens, for the young teens. Implications in our report are enormous and should give the TV industry significant pause. The industry should have to answer as to why PG-rated primetime series are going extinct, why the lines are blurring, and why more adult content is being shown on TV PG shows, why nudity and violence are increasing. They argue that TV ratings review boards should be independent. Probably they want the TV Council to be part of the rating system. Let's see. And they criticized ABC's biblical drama, Kings and Prophets, for not being family friendly because of its graphic content. The real question is here, why wouldn't ABC and the show's producer want to reach a larger audience? Series based on Bible accurate stories. That's what they're getting at. Okay. Now, all right, come on, there we go. All right, I'm just using a somewhat extreme example, but that's what happens when, that's what can happen with censorship. And censorship is a really difficult question. What should and should not censor? And the last thing we want to do is have government controlling entertainment content. That's the last thing we want. And going to go into another story that asks the question. Well, actually, I don't know. I'm not going to bother reading the story. Losing my voice here. But I've got a group in the Facebooks. We talk politics. And we're discussing the story. And so, how much censorship should we really have? You have, for instance, on the social media, you got Reddit, even Twitter. Man, they got some conversations. You try to start any kind of a reasonable discussion about something, you state an opinion, and you get slammed by the trolls. And it's mostly women getting slammed by the trolls. Really nasty stuff being said. And Twitter and Reddit, they're trying to do something about it. But it's really, that's a really tough question. And I think, well, if you had transparency, that is the person making the nasty, nasty comments, if you had a way of holding them responsible for their comments, then I think a lot of the problems will go away. As Roxy said, YouTube can be even worse. But what do? I mean, well, okay, the people who created Twitter and Reddit, they're going to have to create filters, or people are going to move away. I'm not on Twitter at all. I'm on Facebook. We don't have that much of a problem as far as I can tell, but you know, I've only got like 300 people that view my content, and I have closed section groups. But do you want, you know, man, how can you create a really good filter that'll filter out the trash and allow people to state opinions on anything they want to talk about? You certainly don't want governments getting in. Governments want it. They want that control. Do I want the people who create Twitter? Do I want them to be the ones to control the algorithm? I mean, that's going to happen. But is that even a good idea? Hate speech. Well, certainly hate speech is protected. Freedom of speech, absolutely. You are free to go on to, you know, your old soapbox in the village square and say whatever the heck you want, even if it's the most hateful thing you can think of. You are free on the internet. You've got hate groups on the internet. You got to have that kind of a freedom, or you're not going to have true freedom of expression. If you could find a way, if when that hate converts into an action that harms people, and I'm thinking of, for instance, maybe something like these terrorist groups, where you can see someone commits a terrorist act, and they committed a terrorist act because they were encouraged to do so by an online group such as ISIS. Okay, then you find that connection, and then you can do something about that particular group, the hate group or ISIS. But even ISIS deserves to have a voice on the internet. Absolutely. I don't know. I really can't. I don't know how we can find a really good balance. And I tend to be on the side of anything goes. I mean, if you get to the point, and it's happened with some women, where you know, people, you know, they get into the internet, they get their telephone number, they post their telephone number on Twitter. Man, got to be able to do something about that. And the only thing we can do there is, well, I guess The answer there might be creating a separate group, maybe. A separate group that's not going to involve trolls. Don't know how you do it. I try to do that. On Facebook, I got my group, like Politics, but I only got like 8 people in it because it's, and I know the people I'm inviting. When you have the TWIS with the T group on Facebook, we invite everybody, but we can kick out people. And we can do that in these chat areas. I don't know a better way, because the ability to say what you want, even if it's hateful, that's how you gauge how free a society is. Can the Ku Klux Klan, have a website? Can the neo-Nazis have a website? Yes, they should have them. It's important. We've got hello, we have FEX has joined the chat room. Hello, FEX. Interested in anybody in the chat area who has anything to say about censorship? It's a really tough subject. And now you start talking about kids. It's another complicated thing. How young does a child have to be able to deal with sexual content? I'm more concerned. I'm more concerned about violent content. But I mean, if you look at human history, you had 13 and 14-year-olds, puberty. Puberty decided when we were going to get engaged in sexual activity, when our body's ready for it. And where people aren't living that long, living to be much more than 30, you got to start making babies early on. And if you want to be around to help raise your child, which you want to be, once again, you have to start having children younger. So 13 and 14-year-olds in the past certainly were capable of dealing with sexual content. Each society has its own rules, and each society decides what that age is. How necessary is that? You look at some other, like the Scandinavian countries, have a very different view of what sexual content goes on television, etc., compared to the United States. Mostly because the United States censorship has been controlled by Christians. Our earliest ancestors, well, the ancestors that developed the society we have, Puritans. So we have, I don't know if the word would be stricter views than in like the Scandinavian cultures. Nakedness. What's wrong with the naked body? Come on. I mean, children are breastfeeding at the youngest age. What the heck is wrong with the sight of a female breast? You don't want to look at my breast, I know that. I just don't, I understand it, but I think it's really kind of silly. You go to an American TV show, and what do you see? You go into the morgue, and what do you see? The naked body's covered. You go to, you watch a show in Europe, the naked body is there. It is. It's a naked body. Why the heck do you have to cover it? That I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense. But I understand. For instance, you have some people. They don't want their children exposed to certain things, and you, as a parent, should have the right to control as best you can the content your child gets exposed to. Absolutely. And so that's where you do need some kind of a rating system. And I think the best thing there is the adult has to have a very clear idea of whatever the heck it is their child may be exposed to, so they can make a more informed decision. Do you even want your, I don't know, you got cell phones and you got apps. You don't, parents legitimately can say, I don't want my child using all of these apps over here, so I'm going to put some kind of a block on their device, their iPad, their iPhone. That's completely appropriate. So I want, parents having the ability to control as much as possible what their children are exposed to. But I also want our society to evolve away from so many of our ideas that a naked body is sinful, it's bad. I look at that National Geographic. There's female breasts. Now I'm going to go out and run out and rape and murder and kill people. I don't know. I really have to say, I think American society in that regard needs to grow up. But I also agree we need to have filters. We need to give parents the ability to monitor. They can't control their kids. And FX in the chat area says that the kid will figure out how to hack that pretty quickly. And he's right. And, kids are going to grow up a lot faster. And I think that's better compared to me. Oh, my God. How many sexual dysfunctional problems are created from believing, the sex is dirty, I don't, okay, it's okay if you're married. You're not married. Sex is dirty. That's the way I was taught. So I guess what's going to happen is the kids are, it's going to be harder and harder to control what kids are exposed to. Now that they can, like FX says, they're going to learn how to unlock the phones at a very early age. So I guess, parents, goodbye to controlling your kids. But I think kids are capable at earlier ages to deal with stuff. I'm not going to get well, the whole age of consent business is really even harder. And I know it's harder for anyone looking at it. But if 500 years ago, 13, 14-year-old kids having sex and having babies, why shouldn't that be the age of consent? I'll leave you with this, thought. Why can't 13 and 14-year-old kids have sex? That's how our bodies are programmed. And I know it's icky. And I know the idea, if you've got a kid, you got a young girl, a boy, 13, 14-year-old, the idea of them having sex is, ugh. But it's nature. No, I don't know. If you're still hanging around, and I'd like to thank the chat area. FX, you're just getting back. The old man's losing his voice. I hope, for those of you that have been watching, I hope I have been able to provide you with some interesting information. Hope I've been entertaining. Don't know how much I've informed you, because most of you know a lot more than I do, but hopefully I've entertained you. This week, things just didn't work out. Pamela's busy. She's been going to law school. She's raising a kid. She's part of an activist group. She took a trip last week. She says she will be back next week. Justin, okay, he was just too tired. I mean, the guy's selling cars. He's working late at night. Sometimes he can join us. Sometimes he can't. Richard Drum, old man like me, having back problems. So, this turned out to be a one-man show. I mean, that's just the way it was. But I hope you will join us next week. Let's see. FX. I missed out on the juggling. I didn't think of that. I didn't think about that. Good point. Next time when I'm by myself, I'll do some juggling. So in any event, I am going to go off the air at this point, and hopefully we'll get more minions next week so we can get better conversations going. So see you guys hopefully next week when we'll have more minions joining us.